Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Forum Daily West. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The strike at Canada Post is impacting many in our country, including our First Nations communities, which are not receiving medicine. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre stood up in the House of Commons, demanding the Trudeau government curb its inflationary spending. And a special political forum will be held in Lethbridge tonight, involving the candidates who are vying for the Lethbridge West seat for the December 18th by-election. Thanks so much for joining us. As negotiations continue between Canada Post and its union, the strike is hitting many Canadians pretty hard. The Assembly of First Nations says the work stoppage is delaying supplies of medicine and other necessities from reaching rural and remote communities here in Canada. It is calling for an immediate resolution to the impasse, which is now nearing the 4-week mark. The union, CUPW, is seeking wage increases and more job protections, but Canada Post says the union's latest proposals widen the gap between the two sides. As Canadians await the federal government's fall economic update next Monday, federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre stood up in question period, demanding the Trudeau government stop the inflationary spending, which he says is driving many more Canadians to the poorhouse.
After doubling the debt with inflationary spending, doubling the cost of housing with more bureaucracy that blocks building, doubling the number of people using food banks with carbon taxes on farmers and truckers who bring us our food. Finally, they're planning a fall update, but they'll do it in the snow on December 16th. Our message is stop.
Yes.
Stop the inflationary spending. Stop the tax increases on food and homes. Stop indebting Canadians. Will they please just stop?
On the 16th of December, we will present our economic record in this chamber, and we will talk about the fall economic statement. And I anticipate that you're going to hear a lot about the economic record that we've amassed. One thing that I anticipate you'll hear about is what we've done with respect to childcare. On childcare, an economic affordability model, we've brought it down to $10 a day in 8 provinces. That has resulted in 110,000 women joining the workplace. What is that record, Mr. Speaker? 85% of women are now participating in the workforce in Canada. That is a record high. That is what we stand behind on this side of the House.
An NDP motion to permanently pause the GST was defeated in Parliament. Leader Jagmeet Singh says the Liberal government's 2-month GST pause, beginning on December 14th, should be completely axed to help cover monthly expenses such as internet and phone bills. He also says the other federal parties voted against expanding the government's proposed $250 rebate checks to include more than those who are currently working.
In addition, they also voted against a senior getting that check. They voted against people living with disabilities getting that check. They voted against a single mom taking care of her kids that had to make sacrifices, not getting a check. That's what they voted for. They voted for them not getting a check. I think it's clear that Canadians need someone who's going to fight for them, who's going to fight for tax cuts for the working class, not for billionaires. That's why I'm running for Prime Minister.
Canadian government officials say they will evaluate asylum claims of people who have fled Syria following the Assad regime's fall. Immigration Minister Mark Miller says our asylum system is not seeing the same pressure as European counterparts such as Germany and Austria. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad fled the country over the weekend and is reportedly in Russia after opposition forces seized the capital, Damascus. Soon after the news broke, Ottawa urged Canadians to avoid all travel to Syria and to consider leaving the country if it's safe to do so.
I think some countries face asylum seeking levels from Syria in much higher quantities than we do. Germany is an example, Greece is another. We don't face that flow in Canada. I don't know what rank they occupy in terms of source countries for asylum seekers, but it's pretty low down there. Our inventory is a little less than about 2,000, so it isn't something in terms of volume that we're facing. The Immigration Refugee Board assesses and reassesses on a constant basis the reasons for people to claim asylum, so that's something that we'll, I think, monitor carefully.
Charges have been laid and drugs and firearms were confiscated following a number of busts in Lethbridge, Raymond, and Colehurst. Alert says 4 firearms were seized along with thousands of rounds of ammunition, body armor, cocaine, other drugs, and around $1,500 in cash. Even though homes were searched back on November the 21st, police just released the details earlier today. 52-year-old Randolph Langdale, 37-year-old Daoud Mohammed, 36-year-old Jebediah Caswell, and 24-year-old Kira Davarin face a number of drugs and weapons-related charges. Candidates who are competing for the Lethbridge West riding will be answering questions from the media and public tonight at the main branch of the Lethbridge Public Library. The three who are vying for Shannon Phillips' old seat are the UCP's John Middleton Hope, the NDP's Rob Miyashiro, and the Alberta Party's Leighton Vaverka. You know, there's a push by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation to have the CBC completely defunded. Chris Sims is the Alberta director of the CTF, and she brought forth her concerns in Ottawa at a recent Heritage Committee meeting earlier this month. She joins us now from Lethbridge to discuss this in more detail. Chris, why are you echoing Pierre Poilievre's talking point on having our public broadcaster defunded?
I must say, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation started this, and we think Pierre's copying us. But we're happy to have any political party pick up this torch and say that the CBC needs to be defunded for three major reasons. One, the CBC is costing way too much money. This year, it's $1.4 billion. To put the money into perspective, that could otherwise pay the salaries of about 7,000 police officers and 7,000 paramedics. Two, nearly nobody is watching it, Hal. The CBC gets microscopic TV ratings. And three, journalists should not be paid by the government. It's a conflict of interest, and it's got to stop.
Now, Chris, many people would argue that nothing can be done about defunding the CBC until we see a change in government. How do you see it?
It's one of those things, right? Prime Minister Justin Trudeau really needs something to give him a boost in the polls. And so far, it sounds like he doesn't want to scrap the carbon tax. And he continuously doubles down on things like seizing people's private property in the forms of firearms. And we're seeing now, from the looks of it, a terribly bigger deficit than even we had feared. So, hey, maybe this is something that he can pick up on. But based on his recent comments in Halifax, where he sniffed at that idea of defunding the CBC, so much so that he really doesn't like bumper stickers, really makes him mad, I don't see him making this change. However, Pierre Poilievre has committed to defunding the CBC, and we will hold him to that promise if he forms government.
Now, some believe that if the Conservatives do get in, they will only defund CBC English TV and not the French side, since it would give TVA a monopoly over Canada. How do you see this playing out?
We don't want them to do a half measure. We want the line item, that is the CBC in the federal government budget, deleted. So in this case, if it were the most recent budget, $1.4 billion gone. I will point out the CBC/Radio Canada does generate around $500 million of its own money, apart from government. So that's nothing to sneeze at. That money could be used for things like Radio Canada, or a form of Radio 1. It could look a lot like TV Ontario, combine that with a bunch of subscriptions and donations and support. They could do their own thing free from government, and that's what they should do.
Thanks so much for your time today, Chris. That was Chris Sims, Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from here in Lethbridge. Lethbridge City Council discussed on Tuesday solutions to the deficit placed on the Lethbridge and District exhibition. Chief Financial Officer Daryl Matthews recommended a continuation of operations of the LDE as the costs of shuttering operations remain equal at $4.1 million per year for 3 years. He presented several payment options, including using additional tax increases, full or partial use of the budget contingency, and a reduction of city services to cover the costs. Matthew concluded that there are no low-risk options for both the city and taxpayers. He says all options available would require an increase in taxes or a reduction in services. As of the time of air, no decision has been finalized yet by City Council. Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Higgin presented a key to the city to a local doctor. Cardiologist Dr. Saya Zilke was bestowed the honor on Tuesday afternoon at City Council. City officials say Zilke received the recognition thanks to her tireless efforts to improve and advance cardiac care here in southern Alberta. They say she also helped to spearhead a new cath lab for Lethbridge. Government officials say the planning is complete, and now the project is on to the next phase to determine the scope, schedule, and budget for the new lab. The key to the city is a municipal government's highest honor and is given to recognize the outstanding civic contributions of each recipient. You know, there's still time to purchase some toys for the Angel Tree. The campaign is down to its last 800 children to purchase and donate unwrapped gifts for. There are certain age groups, however, that Angel Tree is running low on. Michelle Gallucci of Lethbridge Family Services said they're missing toys for 12 to 24-month-olds along with more girl items.
We're missing dolls. We have no dolls, 0 dolls. So if you want to give something, dolls is the thing. Baby dolls or older dolls for 6 to 9-year-olds and LOL dolls or Monster High dolls. We need dolls. So this year we are assisting 4,267 children more than last year. So the need is great. And it's because it is our economy affecting now the middle class. So now the middle class have found that the cost is higher for them. The donations are down a little bit. We are very lucky. Our donations dollar-wise are, we're coming into it, but we're still down 25,000. I expected a lot worse. The toys, however, are about half.
Another group that's pretty busy collecting and distributing donations right now is the Southern Alberta Bikers. Toys and money collected through their toy run this fall have gone to Senator Buchanan School, the Angel Tree Campaign, plus Child Life Services at the Chinook Regional Hospital, along with both food banks and the student food banks at both post-secondary institutions here in the city. And they're not done yet, according to Dallas Hardy, who's the president of the Southern Alberta Bikers.
Well, we've still got some money coming in this year, and I believe by Christmas time will be probably between $6,000 and $7,000 that between what the checks that we presented last weekend and some donations we'll make in between now and Christmas. If anybody wants to make a donation, and that's the thing that everybody needs to know is our club, 100% of what we get goes back into the community. The club keeps nothing. We like giving back to the community. We like putting smiles on people's faces. It's kind of a feel-good thing.
Kevin O'Leary, in partnership with the Municipal District of Greenwood in northwestern Alberta, plan to open a $70 billion AI research center known as Wonder Valley. O'Leary, who is known as the host of the TV series Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, claims it would be the largest real estate project ever proposed in Canada and the world's largest AI data center. The planned site would cover 7,000 acres, 40 kilometers south of the city of Grand Prairie. O'Leary, in a statement, says it's the perfect site, crediting the cold weather climate, highly skilled labor force, Alberta's pro-business policies, and attractive tax regime. O'Leary says he expects the future site to offer 7.5 gigawatts of low-cost power to hyperscalers over the next 5 to 10 years. Wonder Valley is expected to be developed in multiple phases and bring an influx of job opportunities to Alberta. Some First Nations groups in our province are looking for an impact assessment review of a Pathways project here in Alberta. The Pathways Alliance group of oil sands companies is proposing to build a carbon capture and storage network worth $16.5 billion. 8 First Nations groups say the unprecedented and massive project poses potential risks to both the environment and human health. While Pathways has started submitting applications to the Alberta Energy Regulator for approval, the groups say there should also be a federal review instead due to the project's potential impact on reserve land and Indigenous territory. The chief financial officer of Flair Airlines is facing involuntary manslaughter charges. It's in connection with a single vehicle crash involving an underage driver who'd been drinking at his home near Atlanta. The district attorney for DeKalb County in Georgia says a grand jury indicted Sumant Rao, his wife, and the teen driver of the SUV. The Georgia couple, who prosecutors say were known to host underage drinking parties, allowed an 18-year-old to drink at their home before allowing her to get behind the wheel and drive. The 3 survived the crash, but an 18-year-old female passenger sadly did not. The 18-year-old driver of the vehicle, Hannah Hackemeyer, faces a number of charges, including vehicular homicide. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 121 basis points to 25,504. The Dow was down 154 points to 44,247. The S&P 500 was down 17 points to 6,034, and the Nasdaq was down 49 points to 19,687. West Texas Intermediate oil was up 14 cents to 68.51 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 1 cent to 3.19 US. Gold was up 34.47 to 26.9393 US an ounce, and silver was up 7 cents to 31.90 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.43 per bushel, barley is at $6.66, canola is at $14.10, and corn is at $7.87 per bushel. Live cattle were up $2.05 to $189.85. Feeder cattle January contract was up $1.53 to $257.33, and lean hogs were up 50 cents to $78.25. And the Canadian dollar was slightly down over the past 24 hours and currently sits at 70.50 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, as negotiations continue between Canada Post and its union, the strike is hitting many Canadians quite hard. The Assembly of First Nations says the work stoppage is delaying supplies of medicine and other necessities from reaching rural and remote communities here in Canada. It is calling for an immediate resolution to the impasse, which is now nearing the 4-week mark. The union, CUPW, is seeking wage increases and more job protections, but Canada Post says the union's latest proposals widen the gap between the two sides. That's your Forum Daily West report. I'm Hal Roberts. Thanks so much for watching.